Oh snap, welcome back to the channel, y'all. My name's Patrick. If you like true crime and all the other craziness going on in this world, take a second, hit that little follow button for me, subscribe button, whatever it is on the platform that you're currently watching on. And YouTube, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. The more likes we get, the more YouTube spreads the word about the live stream. So y'all, go ahead, do it, like the video. But check this out, y'all. We talked about this one quite a bit, and it appears that there's more craziness in the Ruby Franke story. So Law and Crime did this video, and it said disturbing. Well, this said 30. 30 disturbing Momfluencer. So I guess that's what she was calling herself. Momfluencer Ruby Franke details revealed in a tell-all book. Oh, hell. Here we go, y'all. Seriously, make sure you hit the like button, and let's just jump straight into this.
Family vlogging ruined my innocence long before Ruby committed a crime.
The oldest child of former mommy blogger and convicted abuser Ruby Franke is taking control of the story around her life, releasing a tell-all memoir. My producer bought a copy, read the whole thing in like a day, highlighting the most revealing new details and shocking allegations. We're going to take you through them right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Shari Franke.
Damn.
If you've been following us here on Sidebar, you know exactly who this is. And if you don't, she is a young woman who's now in her early 20s who is grappling with the grief and trauma that she has experienced over the last decade. And she apparently is doing it in a way that is very familiar to her: storytelling. You see, she has been journaling since she was a child, according to her newly released memoir, The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom. And through this book, she is now sharing new parts of her story with a world that saw her family fall apart, actually, in real time. We're talking, literally, of course, about Ruby Franke. This is her mother. Ruby Franke and her business partner and apparent lover, we're going to get to
Jody Hildebrandt, or whatever it was called.
That. Jody Hildebrandt. This
Hildebrandt. Yep, one of those.
Pair were arrested in August of 2023 when Shari's two youngest siblings were found in really bad shape. We are talking injuries, malnutrition, severe emotional damage, evidence of binding, and they were found at Jody's home in Ivins, Utah. This is hundreds of miles away from where Shari and her 5 siblings had grown up in Springville. After running a wildly successful YouTube channel based around her family's lives called 8 Passengers, by 2023, Ruby Franke had all but abandoned it, and she was leaning very hard into Jody's religious fervor, as well as her philosophy of strict parenting. The women, both ardent members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as LDS, were also business partners together in a life coaching organization known as Connections. And they eventually entered guilty pleas to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse each for what they did to those 2 young children.
Yeah, you crazy as hell. It's about connections.
And they're going to spend at least 4 years in prison, maybe a maximum of 30 years. It's all going to be up to the parole board to decide if they've earned the right to be released before then. Now, we have done many sidebars on the fall of Ruby Franke and the 8 Passengers channel, and you can go check out those on our Law and Crime YouTube page if you want to learn more about the backstory, more of the details of the case we were following.
Yeah, it was crazy as hell. Catherine, thank you so much, and thank you for becoming a member, too. I appreciate that. Y'all join the channel. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
Every aspect of it. But for now, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain to learn more details from Shari, who was in the midst of this chaos for most of her life. And it all centers around this book, again, which my producer, Savannah Williamson, did a deep dive on. She and I have been covering and breaking down the Franke case from the very beginning, so really great work by her here. And we're going to talk about this book. So Shari acknowledges at one point in this memoir that this story was ready-made for mass consumption. Writing, the story had all the ingredients: a beautiful, God-fearing American family turning their rags into riches on YouTube, only to be wrenched apart in a dramatic turn of events featuring demonic possession, doomsday prepper cults with lesbian undertones. And we're going to get...
What in the world? Oh, you can see Dallas right here. Look, you see Dallas right there.
Get into all of that. But Shari began the book by talking about the call that she got that police had swarmed the neighborhood where her younger siblings were still living. Shari was estranged from her family at that point following years of what she says was psychological and physical torment. But a neighbor had called her to tell her that officers were raiding the family home. Now, Shari writes about a post that she made on social media when she got to the scene.
She put finally.
Quote, "The caption crystallized in my mind a single word that carried the weight of years. Finally. Upload to Instagram, share. This nightmare was born on social media. It should die there too." And for us watching this story unfold back in 2023, that was a very big moment when she made that post, because it gave us a behind-the-scenes look at what was going on with this family, or what may have been going on, especially because in a separate post, Shari wrote, "Today has been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers and also respect their privacy." Now, going back to the book, Shari takes some time to write about her parents' histories. So both of them come from large LDS families. Ruby Griffiths was the oldest of 5. Kevin Franke was the youngest of 7. According to Shari, Ruby's greatest ambition was to become a mom. She believed that motherhood was a divine calling and gave a woman the ultimate power of shaping another human being. Ruby ended up going to Utah State University in 2000, and as a freshman, she met Kevin, a senior. Within 2 weeks of having first met, Ruby asked when they were going to get married. And by the end of December, the two were wed and they started their family. Of her 5 siblings, Shari only names one other, her brother Chad, the second born to the Frankes. He was also over the age of 18 when Ruby was arrested. The other children, 3 girls, 1 boy, are minors. And Shari writes, "In a kinder world, their stories would not be fodder for a book. Their private moments would be their own, known only to friends and family, not to be dissected by strangers on the internet. But peace and anonymity were never in the cards for us. We have Ruby to thank for that. Ruby and her insatiable hunger for attention and success." Ruby's first mommy blog was called Good Lookin' Home Cookin', and according to Shari, was more a way to chronicle family life than recipes. And from there, she made a few more blogs before her sisters started using newfangled video cameras and tripods to make their own videos and post them online. And that's apparently when Ruby decided it was time for her to get in on the action. Ruby posted the first video to the 8 Passengers channel on January 8th, 2015, showing the gender reveal of her 6th and final child, a girl. From there, Ruby would go on to post more than 1,300 videos of her family, eventually amassing a following of more than 2 million subscribers. So again, when this news broke of her arrest, this was a big deal. A lot of people knew who she was. And for those who may not be as familiar with the Mormon faith, Shari explained that the idea of family vlogging just made sense with the lifestyle that they were already living. She writes, "In a way, the synergy between YouTube and LDS families seemed almost predestined, fitting perfectly with the church's desire to be in the world but not of the world, allowing members to engage with modern culture, maintaining our distinct values and beliefs." So for the next several years, Shari lived in front of a camera as a child. Any and every moment could potentially be framed for content. The more personal, the better. And once Ruby reached the YouTube level where she could monetize the videos, the money and the sponsorship started pouring in. But these videos weren't without controversy. You see, there had been some signs of potentially questionable punishments at times in Ruby's videos over the years. But Shari confirmed that physical punishment from her mom started long before the cameras ever got rolling. She writes, "I quickly learned that anything less than unbridled enthusiasm would trigger Ruby into a rage. One hint of displeasure on my face, and whack. A smack on the arm, a flick to my lips, or a sharp tug on my ear. I rarely cried when Ruby punished me. Only one person in this house was allowed to shed tears, and it wasn't me." She also remembers coming to the realization, quote, "Mommy isn't very nice to me." So Shari decided to start her own YouTube channel at the end of 8th grade for one reason: money. She says she saw how successful her mother Ruby was in this YouTube world, and she wanted in. But according to Shari, while Ruby agreed that Shari could create her own spin-off in a way, she wouldn't be getting any help from 8 Passengers. Shari had thought that she could jumpstart her channel with maybe a shout-out from her mom, right? But Ruby apparently flat out refused. She said no one got a shout out on her channel unless they had at least 100,000 followers. So that's what Shari had to do to get some help from her mom before her mom.
What? Your own mom says that? That is crazy. That's your child, and she's part of the main one. And you're gonna be like, "Ugh, no one gets a shout out on my channel unless they have 100,000 followers." The is wrong with you? Oh my God, that is crazy.
Mom wouldn't even acknowledge the new channel to all of her fans. And when she recounts her efforts to increase her subscribers, Shari admits she used her siblings in many of the same ways that Ruby had used her, putting some of their most personal moments out to the internet for millions of prying eyes. And Shari says for her 15th birthday, her gift from her mom was that video shout out. Yeah, and indeed, the number of subscribers rocketed. That's when Shari says that Ruby informed her she was taking a 10% cut from Shari's earnings. You see, Ruby was in charge of the money because Shari was still underage, reportedly saying, quote, "You really think you would have ever started a YouTube channel, let alone a successful one, without my help? You owe me, Shari. Business is business." But
Dear
things really
God.
started to take a turn in the Franke family when Shari and Chad entered their teenage years. You see, this is when Shari claimed...
You gonna burn in hell for that one. Business is business. God damn.
that she confided
That's
in her
ruthless.
father, Kevin, that she was depressed and she had thought about self-harm. Kevin told Ruby about this, who told Shari all she needed to do was sleep better, exercise more, eat right. Shari would later tell a therapist that Ruby believed anything could be cured with prayer and a diet. Now, I mentioned that Shari had been keeping a journal, and she included this passage saying, "I'm shutting down more and more often. I can't help it, even though my silence really triggers Mom. She seems to think that if I'm quiet, that I have a bad attitude. The truth is, I'm quiet because I irrevocably and undeniably hate myself, and I have for a while." Now, Shari apparently did attend therapy for a while during this time, but says that Ruby had pulled her out, telling her the therapist said she was all better and that she was just Mommy's little drama queen. I mean, what we're hearing here from Shari is basically the description of a very toxic relationship between mother and daughter. She even accused Ruby of constantly telling her no man will ever want to marry her, or that when Shari is an adult, they can finally become friends. But it
What?
wasn't just Shari's behavior that Ruby and Kevin couldn't really understand. It was Chad's too. He was becoming more rebellious and acting out as, any teenager might. But Shari also noted that Chad had learned how to manipulate people brilliantly, saying, "Turns out growing up on camera is excellent training for pulling the wool over people's eyes." But Chad started pushing things apparently too far, triggering a domino effect of bad decisions. According to Shari, in August of 2018, the family had the opportunity to do a big brand collaboration with Universal Studios Hollywood. They were even given early access to the park to do some filming. But it seemed Chad really didn't want to be a part of this. He had been obstinate, refusing to cooperate, photobombing Ruby's solo shots, that kind of thing. So he was banished back to the hotel while the family stayed in the park. But you got to get this. According to Shari, Chad had managed to sneak out, take a taxi back to Universal Studios, and he was hanging out in the park on his own. Ruby and Kevin were livid, apparently, and they decided that they had to take some major steps to get Chad under control. That is when Ruby heard about Jody Hildebrandt, this licensed mental health counselor who was gaining a reputation as this miracle worker within the LDS community. Shari wrote, "They were on a mission to find the perfect person to crack his code and rewire him to their liking, which is how the monster came into our lives." Jody suggested to the Frankes that they send Chad to a wilderness camp for troubled teens in Arizona called Anasazi, hoping that would straighten him out. And Shari says Chad actually enjoyed much of his time there. He was able to be out in nature. He didn't have a camera stuck in his face for 24 hours a day. But after that 49-day program, which cost $13,000, by the way, it was back to Utah.
The hell?
Back to content creation and back to one-on-one sessions with his new therapist, Jody Hildebrandt. According to Shari, June 2022 was the last time the Frankes got together for a photo shoot and the last time all 8 of them were together in the same place as a family. Meantime, Ruby was An excited new convert to Jodi's beliefs on truth and distortion, which is what she called
her
it when
hand,
someone was living in...
Is her hand on her leg right there, y'all? Oh, hell. Look at that. She's like, hey, tell him about connections, baby. Yeah. You crazy as hell for that.
Sin or not on the right path. Ruby and Kevin both started working closely with Jody Hildebrandt and participated in her leadership training courses, which cost between $5,000 and $15,000 per person, according to Shari. Is that not a bit questionable? And talking Jody Hildebrandt for a minute, she apparently held several beliefs that are on the fringes of the LDS faith, including some very austere thoughts when it came to sex and sexuality.
Shocker.
For example, according to Shari, Jody believed that a man who had only spoken with a female coworker, that was basically adultery. Coming across a photo of a woman you found attractive online was tantamount to pornography.
Dear God, man, she is crazy.
We've talked about this in previous episodes, about people who say Jody ruined their lives with her sometimes draconian teachings. And at one point, Jody told the members of her group called Connections that if they wanted to use her teachings and materials, she wanted a cut of any money they were making. Shari says a lot of family friends who'd been part of Connections thought that seemed pretty shady and they left the program, but Ruby Franke just grew more and more entrenched. According to Shari, Connections wasn't introducing Ruby to a new way of thinking. It was giving her the vocabulary and pseudoscientific backing to justify what she'd been doing all along. And according to Shari, the relationship between Jody
Moms
and Ruby
of truth. Man, you are nuts.
Turned physical. Just a few weeks before Shari was set to move out and go to college at nearby Brigham Young University, Ruby announced that Shari would be spending those weeks on the couch down in the living room because Jody was moving into Shari's bedroom. Jody, who portrayed herself as someone having been chosen or anointed by God, had been dealing with visions and convulsions, sometimes going into these reported trances where she would dream about the afterlife. She was purportedly moving in so that Ruby could help take care of her. And it ended up that once...
You gonna burn in hell for all of that. That is the crazy...
Jody moved
Come
in,
on.
the two women spent hours and hours locked away in Shari's old bedroom. Not only was everyone else in the house apparently forbidden from even being on the second floor, but they had to ask permission from Ruby via text message to even approach the stairs. And Shari wrote that she went up there once while the women were away to get something, and she was, quote, confused about what she saw. Quote, the room was bathed in the soft glow of candles. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender and vanilla wafting from the massage oils on the dresser. I quickly grabbed what I needed and got the hell out of there, feeling like I just walked into someone else's honeymoon suite. The only thing missing was rose petals on the bed.
Man, you are crazy as hell. Thank God she didn't open up like any of the drawers. Oh my God, that is nuts.
And Shari says the two women, quote, condemned queerness very publicly in their Connections videos while embodying it privately. Shari said she would also eventually find emails, messages, notes on her mother's laptop that confirmed a one-sided sexual relationship had been going on. Ruby reportedly expressed her frustration about having to cater to Jody's needs for physical affection without getting anything in return.
Jody. Oh no. Jody. Come on, you sick son of a... You're gonna do all of this crazy stuff, but that's where you draw the line, Jody? Man, you are a Hildebeest. That is crazy as hell. That is crazy as hell.
And throughout this, Shari says her father, Kevin, was becoming more and more withdrawn. He'd participated in these training sessions with Ruby and Jody and appeared to be buying into Jody's new role in their lives as some sort of authority figure. And that eventually led to Jody instructing Ruby to invite Kevin to leave the home for the good of the family. He'd be allowed to return after 1 year if he had fixed his own problems. And Kevin said he was...
I'd have been like, lady, you're the problem. Get the hell out of my house. And take your lavender massage oils and... Get it all out of my house.
taking Chad with him because selfish people belong together. But going back to the kids for a minute, so Chad and Shari, they apparently went to solo therapy sessions with Jodi, if you can call them that. But
Gross.
Shari says she believes that Chad was just agreeing with everything Jodi said to just get it over with, and that he appeared to have been manipulated into thinking that what she said was making sense. Shari said she too fell into that trap because Jodi had forced her to keep an actual accounting of all of the selfish or self-serving things she did in a day. She writes, working with Jodi was like a dream come true for my inner mean girl. And the best part, it was all framed as a healthy way of building self-awareness. In her journal, Shari wrote out the things that she did wrong. A few examples include, felt smug when I answered a question in class that no one else could, silently congratulated myself for using whom correctly in a sentence, believed I was more mature than my peers for enjoying documentaries. Yeah, these are really wrong things, but...
Yeah, man, that sounds terrible. How dare you? Oh, my goodness.
But here's the thing.
That's something to be proud of.
When Jodi started contradicting herself, telling Shari something one day and another thing the next, then pretending she had no idea what Shari was talking about, the delusion started to crack for Shari, and she realized she was being gaslit on a scale of Olympic proportions. She started to distance herself from Ruby and Jodi, but that meant she had to distance herself from her siblings too. And joining connections certainly had an impact on Ruby, because according to Shari, while Ruby had yelled at the children a lot less, Shari says that was replaced by a more calculating Ruby Franke, one who used more psychological punishments than physical ones. For example, one Christmas when Shari was a freshman in college, her parents decided that her two youngest siblings wouldn't be getting any presents. Ruby announced to the family that they were teaching them to not be selfish and entitled. Shari says her father just nodded along to all of this. And once everyone else opened up their gifts, Jodi, who remember had been living there, reportedly ordered the youngest two to clean up all the wrapping paper and other trash that was just strewn around the floor. Jodi reportedly said, children are not entitled to a magical childhood. You can't just expect love and presents. Many have nothing at all. And Ruby drilled it into everyone that Jodi essentially could do no wrong. Allegedly once...
You're gonna burn in hell for that one, lady.
Telling Shari, anyone who doesn't like Jodi is hiding something. It means you're threatened by the truth she speaks. But what had happened to 8 Passengers, right? The once thriving money-making machine that was supported by hours and hours of family footage? Well, according to Shari Franke, this moment is when things went nuclear.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. It's pretty funny, but now that I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, he was like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears. And then...
So that was not the reason you lost your room, but that was...
Well, the other reason is because I pointed a BB gun at his face.
Pointed a BB gun at his face and hung him on the basketball. Basically, Chad...
The day I got home, too.
Chad came home from Anasazi and...
Like, I want to try dunking the basketball, and I lifted him up on
And he was...
and left him there for like 3 minutes, and he was just hanging on there.
Do you think it's funny? Because...
And then I walk out. And...
If you think it's funny, then you... That was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
It was not.
Maybe they need longer with a real mom.
Chad showed that he...
Look at the way that she is on the camera, too. She's acting like she's like a... I don't even know what. Like, she's just like... She's annoying as hell.
was not able to manage himself sharing a bedroom with.
So when we moved, the bigger room in the basement was automatically his, and I didn't have a room, but we like put one on hold for me.
So a lot of you are like, hey, that's not fair because Chad got the lesser bedroom and got the bigger bedroom. Got the big bedroom and Chad got the smaller bedroom, and bigger bedroom also had a bathroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room.
So Chad reveals to the world that he had been punished for acting out by losing the right to his bedroom and a real bed. Now, according to Shari, her mom didn't really realize at the time that Chad talking about this was probably not a good look for this wholesome Franke family appearance, but it was actually Ruby's editor who cut together the videos who warned her that there might be some backlash here. But Ruby, according to Shari, insisted he post it, emboldened by the idea that she was showing what real parents had to do to make sure their kids turned out right. And as Shari put it, the internet went ballistic. When Kevin suggested that they take down the video after the onslaught of online hate, Ruby refused, doubled down. According to Shari, that one video burned down the 8 Passengers YouTube channel overnight and cost our family 90% of our income. Hundreds of thousands unsubscribed, and brands once eager to associate with our wholesome family image couldn't distance themselves fast enough. Overnight, we went from wholesome family influencers to social media pariahs. Throughout her college years, Shari was basically estranged from her mother, living in whatever cramped apartment she could afford with multiple roommates, hearing nothing from Kevin, nearly nothing from Ruby. Shari says she was constantly sick with worry about what could be happening to her younger siblings, especially when concerned neighbors started contacting her to let her know that Ruby was away, that she'd be away for days at a time, leaving the kids alone. So Shari says she called the Department of Children and Family Services to do a welfare check when Ruby found out she was livid. Shari writes, Ruby's face contorted with anger and hurt. I can't believe you called the police on me, she began, her voice rising. After everything I've done for you, after all the sacrifices I've made, how could you betray me like that, Shari? How could you be so selfish? The words hit me like physical blows, but I stood my ground, that I wasn't alone, that I had support beyond the toxic web of my family. Selfish, I repeated, finding strength in my voice. I was worried about the kids. They were alone for 5 days, Mom, 5 days. They're fine, Ruby snapped. They're old enough to take care of themselves. This is about you, Shari, your jealousy, your need for attention. But Shari and the neighbors continued to
talk about projection much. Damn, Ruby, you crazy as hell for saying something that stupid.
Contact Child Protective Services, who launched an investigation in 2022. And Shari says that she sat down with investigators to tell them everything that had happened to her and to relay her fears that things could be taking a really dangerous turn for her brothers and sisters. She says the investigators
Cats are going haywire, y'all, sorry.
Took her concerns seriously, but a few months later, they got back to her to say they were closing the case because there wasn't clear evidence of neglect. There was no signs of physical abuse, and under a new Utah law, parents had more leniency in granting their children the independence to do things like stay home alone or walk to school by themselves. Shari says CPS told her the DA didn't want to pursue it. And a year later, Shari's world came crashing down. Her youngest brother and sister had been found in appalling conditions in southern Utah. Her middle sisters had been located at the homes of various friends involved with connections. All the minor-age children became wards of the state. Her mom was facing multiple counts of felony aggravated child abuse. And then came the court hearings and the prison phone calls. Because during one, Ruby had apparently called Chad while he was with Shari. And during the call, Ruby compared herself to Christ, enduring his suffering on the cross, confirming for Shari that she was still deep in this delusion.
Nope.
But both Jody and Ruby, they eventually entered guilty pleas to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse each. And Ruby at first had maintained her innocence. We saw those police interrogation tapes, but quickly changed her tune to say that she had been manipulated and controlled by Jody Hildebrandt, putting all the blame on her spiritual advisor and alleged lover. Jody said in court that she loved the children and never meant to do them any harm. Shari says the only apology she's ever gotten from Ruby came in the form of a letter in August of 2024, and in it, she doesn't acknowledge any of her actions or even the reason that she's in prison. Instead, she laments that she didn't get the chance to spend more time with Shari before she left for college. Now, Shari Franke
Wow.
has since shared on her Instagram account that she is engaged, but she is stepping away from public life for her own safety and sanity and to protect her future family.
That is crazy, y'all. Unbelievable. Ruby Franke, you are nuts. And then, of course, like almost on cue, it wasn't me. I was being manipulated by the Jody Hildebrandt. It was all her. I know that I was doing this stuff too, and I was a part of these things, and I ultimately pled guilty because I was doing these things, but no! It was her! Man, you sound crazy as hell. Unbelievable. Thank God they got busted. Thank God that kid got out and he went to that neighbor's house. Remember that phone call? That 911 phone call was heartbreaking, y'all. I don't know if most of y'all probably heard it, but it was like an older man, it sounded like, that opened the door and saw him, and he called police, and he was just like, you know, this, like, he started crying. He was like, this is bad. Like, they look in bad shape. So, man, that's crazy. Go to jail. Bye Ruby. Bye Jody. Y'all are crazy as hell. All right, y'all, I'm out of here for now. That's 4 videos today. Go back and watch some of the ones I posted. Go watch the one about the prison guard in the UK. That was nuts. Literally. Anyway, see y'all later on. See y'all in the next one. Take care.